Well, a dispute in Washington is revealing how deeply artificial intelligence is already embedded into modern warfare, including in operations linked to the Iran conflict. Tech company Anthropic is taking the Pentagon to court over its designation of the firm as a risk to national security. Earlier this week, the Pentagon deemed Anthropic and its AI chatbot Claude a supply chain risk. Now, the row centres on how the US military can use powerful AI systems in its operations. Reports say the Pentagon's already used Claude to help analyse data during operations linked to the war against Iran. Supporters say artificial intelligence can process vast amounts of intelligence and thereby speed up military decision-making. Critics, though, warn that it raises difficult questions about oversight, accountability, and how much control humans should keep over the battlefield. Well, Craig Jones is an expert on military targeting and he's a researcher with Newcastle University. Welcome to DW, Craig. How is AI being used in this war?
Looks like there are three central uses to the targeting, Israeli and US targeting in Iran. Firstly, and most crucially, I think, is intelligence analysis. There's huge amounts of data, multi-source data that needs to be waded through to select targets. The second thing is actual target selection and preferable targets selection, looking through patterns of life, looking for military targets and selecting those targets and recommending them for military strike. And then thirdly is kind of wargaming scenarios whereby they play out a strike, for example, on Khamenei or the ballistic missile strikes across Iran, those 2,000 strikes that we saw in the opening days, and they do wargaming exercise with AI assisted on, how Iran might respond. There's other ways that AI is used, including in drones and other things, but those are the most crucial uses that we've seen in this war so far.
OK, so if we skip through those three then, so on your third option there, on the wargaming, we can see how that's going to be useful. All right, if we do this and they do this, what's the likely outcome? Fine. Intelligence, intel analysis, this is taking what and crunching it down to what?
So this is taking reams and reams and terabytes of data from satellite imagery, from drone footage, from existing databases, military databases, target banks, intelligence that will go back many years and is also contemporaneously up to date, tracking mobile phones, tracking all communications in Iran. And then, from that, whether we're tracking individuals in terms of leadership or combatants, or tracking mobile targets, for example, whether militants are moving or whether ballistic missiles are, being launched by mobile missile launchers. So you're looking essentially for what the military's called patterns of life, right, in social life. And
OK, that makes absolute sense. Then we come to the second one on your list, which is target selection. And I think this is what gets people quite, I say excited, quite upset. The idea that there is a computer somewhere that says, shoot there, shoot that. Talk us through how that works.
It's complicated, but yeah, the AI is essentially recommending targets, and we've got evidence from the war in Gaza that Israel has, a machine capable of producing several hundred of targets per day. And those are military installations, those are ballistic missile launch sites, those are intelligence on individuals. And the computer, they have something called target banks that then military operators, select from those targets. There is technically a human in the loop, so it's not like fully automated whereby AI does everything. But I think it's the human in the loop element is more technical. So I think that the AI is having a really big role in what is actually struck.
OK, the AI says, these are your options. There are still people who are looking at it and saying, well, that but not that, maybe that, will come back to that. Things seem ethically and legally quite cloudy at the moment with the use where we're already into the use of remote-controlled drones, controlled from a US bunker, hitting targets in Afghanistan, hitting targets in Iraq. Now we're talking about that plus the computer did it. So who gets in trouble when the wrong people get killed?
That's a legally and ethically very fraught issue, and there's no answer to that at the moment. So it stands, legally speaking, it's the commander, whoever decides to launch that particular operation, who retains the legal responsibility in international law and in domestic law, whether that's European or US based law. It is the commander ultimately responsible, but it does raise that question of, because the algorithms aren't transparent, we don't know how the AI works. The people who produce AI don't know how the algorithms work. So the question, the million-dollar question is, how do you distribute and attribute responsibility in that? And at the moment, we have no answers to that, which is why many states, many efforts are against AI use in warfare. The US, Israel, China, some other states around the world are pushing ahead with it in absence of that regulation. They're not able to answer that question in the same way that I'm not able to answer that question, but they're pushing on anyway. So I would urge caution, but big states are doing what big states do militarily and pushing ahead, as they did with drones that you mentioned, and hoping that one day they become lawful and ethical.
And so these are what you might call the AI superpowers, the US, China, Israel. How is Iran doing in this AI war?
I don't know. Ultimately, some of the intelligence on this is highly classified, and clearly the crucial thing about Iran's response is it still has some ballistic capability. It's still got rockets. Israel and the US are doing a pretty good job of taking out most of those. On the AI front, I have very little factual information that I can speak with confidence about. It looks like most of those capabilities would have been taken out if they existed at all, because they still require senior operators, which have, there's much of the leadership and much of the technologies have simply been destroyed or killed.
All right, that's very interesting, very helpful. Thank you so much for talking to us, Craig. Craig Jones from Newcastle University.